for tuning in. I wanted to remind you of our Road to 1,000 Subscribers giveaway that we have going on our YouTube channel. If you subscribe and have a public profile, you'll be entered to win a free RX Smart Gear original jump rope. You'll get to pick the pattern of the handles, the color and weight of the cable, and you'll be getting one of the best-selling, best-performing jump ropes out there. Every time we hit a new century mark with the number of subscribers to our channel, we'll randomly select a new winner. And our friend Dave Newman is going to throw in a little something extra for each winner. So a special thanks to our sponsor, RX Smart Gear, to Dave Newman for being such a great partner, and to you for being a loyal listener. Good luck, and I hope you are our next winner.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I wanted to talk to you about our new sponsor, Element 26. They are an innovative company producing lots of products around the CrossFit, strongman, powerlifting space. They have weightlifting belts, they have knee sleeves, they have thumb tape. They have these cool little straps that go around the bars when you're trying to attach a bar to the rig and maybe using it for low bar work, like pull-ups for little kids, or some modifications for like bar muscle ups when you're trying to teach someone to do them. And you know how you wrap those rubber bands around the rig and the J hook to kind of keep everything straight? Well, they've made straps for that. And they're straps kind of like the straps you use for rings. They have a really secure system on it, and you can wrap around the bar and keep that nice and secure. I love their innovation. Their product development team is top notch, and they're just coming up with really different ideas for our space. So check them out at element26.co. That's element26.co, and tell them Kat sent you.
All right. Hey everyone, welcome to the Clydesdale Fitness and Friends. My name is Scott Switzer. I am your host. I am the Clydesdale. We love to do fitness, and these are my friends. Got my co-host Amy Radowski with me, and a special friend, Carlene Matthews. Welcome, Carlene.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Carlene is a three-time games athlete and a one-time Masters podium finisher. She went to the games as an individual in 15, 16, and 17, and finished second in the Masters age group in 2019, right? Yeah, 2019. And may have done well in 20, but that got all canceled, and then she had a baby and all of that.
Yeah.
But one of the big reasons I have Carlene on is, you know, she was never known as like the strongest athlete on the floor, but I think she may be one of the strongest women we've ever had on this show. And so what I want to talk to you first is, it's September. We just had September 11th a couple days ago, and you made a very poignant post because your husband is a first responder and how that impacted you on that day. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I know there's lots of people, obviously, who have significant others who are first responders and probably feel the same way. But, you know, every time, you know, he leaves, he does like 2 days on, 4 days off. You know, it potentially could be the last time, you know, we see him, and it doesn't always hit me. And I feel like I'm like naive to it, you know, like, oh, goodbye, love you. So seeing like some of the posts the night before on September 10th of like people talking about, you know, this was the last time 349 firefighters said goodbye to their significant other, and they went on their last shift. I was like, oh my gosh, like it was just a reminder that of what they do on a daily basis, and you know, the potential for that to, you know, be our life, of, you know, that being the last time I ever see him. And that would, you know, it just made me like put it into perspective of like, oh my gosh, what would I do? Like my life would be flipped upside down. And yeah, so it just made me really reflect, and made me grateful for, you know, the work that he does, and but also reminded me to you know, cherish every moment too. So,
and being a new mother, you know, the stakes are higher now, and so I can only imagine how, you know, now being a mom, you know, that brings all that emotional piece to it as well.
Yeah, and that was a big thing. It was like, oh my gosh, like I think it's hard to be like 2 days, with him gone for 2 days. Like this would be like our life. Like I couldn't do it. I mean, I guess you do, like, but at this moment, like I just don't. That's not what I want, obviously.
Well, in reading back through some of your posts, Keith seems to be a big rock in your life, and kind of that steady hand for you. How did you guys meet?
Um, yeah, he absolutely is. He's been one of my biggest supporters, and our world was really revolved around me and my goals and dreams when early on. And so we met, actually. Our both of our best friends um got married, and so we actually walked down the aisle together in their wedding, before we ever were dating or anything. And then one of my friends, I was newly sober. When we first met, I was still drinking, but then, so like during that wedding, I was still drinking. And then, a couple months later, I said to my friend, like, gosh, your husband is so awesome. Like, does he have any good, cool friends like that, for me? And she was like, Carleen, like Keith and him are exactly alike, and they're like exactly alike to the like they look alike. Um, and she goes, I think you should just, give him a shot. And I was like, I don't know. He's not really my type. And she goes, that's why you should. And so I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And honestly, it was like we went on our first date was like at the gym. That was like a little bit pre-CrossFit, I think. I had just started CrossFit. So we were still Globo gymming it, and we worked out together for first date, and it was kind of like it was on from there. So like we were really like inseparable from there, and I think we moved in together like 2 or 3 months later, and yeah, so
That's really cool. And definitely thank him for all that he does as a firefighter and an EMT. Without those
absolutely.
people, we would be lost as a country.
Yeah,
And we definitely appreciate all that they do. So
yeah, thank you.
so again, I mentioned that this is National Recovery Month, and I want to talk about all the things that you've overcome. And so first I want to know, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Longview, Washington. And
And
then I went away to college in Oregon. So now I'm in Oregon.
okay. And you did you play sports as a kid? I know you went to
Uh-huh.
college and played softball, but did you play other sports growing up?
Yeah, growing up I played softball and soccer. So I all through high school played soccer, but then softball was really like my love. So I decided to go to college for softball.
And where did you end up going?
I went to Clackamas Community College for 2 years, and then I transferred to St. Martin's University. I spent 2 years there, and then I transferred again to Concordia, and I finished up at Concordia. So when I was at Clackamas, I got a redshirt year because I tore my bicep tendon. So I had 5 years of ball that I got to participate in.
Awesome. And so at one point you develop an eating disorder.
Mhm.
And so tell us how that came about and what you had to fight through growing up.
Yeah, when you think about it, like, well, where did it come about? Well, or like at some point you develop an eating disorder. Like, well, it was probably like a long time coming kind of thing. Uh, I grew up in a family, a good family. My mom and dad were divorced, and I would say that eating disorder behavior started about then, when my parents divorced. my mom remarried, and I was very unhappy with that. And I definitely turned to food as a coping skill. And I actually ended up like gaining a lot of weight. So I used food as a coping skill early on. And then once I, kind of gained a lot of weight, and my mom has had an eating disorder all growing up. So when I gained weight, that was triggering for her, I'm sure. So a lot of my praise came from how I looked, how I ate. There was a big push for diets early on because I had gained some weight and because I was overweight as a, middle schooler, grade schooler, middle schooler. So I just remember a lot of like, oh, we're eating low fat. Carlene's going to go on a diet. Carleen needs to go to the doctor to find out what's wrong with her because she's overweight. And she's very active. I was very active, very fit. Growing up, I was playing sports. But I was using food to can't outwork a shitty diet. So so I remember that growing up, and then going into college, I was drinking, and I kind of did like the freshman 15, and I didn't really like that. So there's always like a lot of focus on diet. Let's go on a diet. Let's try and lose some weight. Let's work out a lot. And I started running. And I just started working my way up to running. And I began to notice that I got attention. And I started to lose weight. And I started getting attention for it. And at this point, I was done with softball. So I didn't have the athlete to kind of rely on, that identity of an athlete. And I just didn't know who I was. And I was getting attention for being, for losing weight, for being thin. And I just flourished on it, I guess. So out of college, that I would say is when like the eating disorder really developed. And it started out for me as like, just like, it started out as anorexic and over exercising, and it turned into bulimic, over exercising, all of the above. And things that I had said, like, I will never do that. I would never do that. And I did that. And so my family was concerned, but I, never looked the part and ever looked the very sick anorexic or bulimic. So I always worked out. So I like, we talk about it now that it's almost like you don't feel worthy to be sick because you don't look sick enough. So you're like not sick. And so, but my family noticed, and my family was concerned. They made a few comments, and I had went into like the hospital at one point for some stomach issues. And they, were like, is this like, are you eating? I remember my grandma like making comments like, are you eating enough? And so finally it was like one day I was on the stair climber at the gym for like the second or third time that day. And I finally like was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't live this life. Um, and I sent my older sister a message and was like, I'm done. I I have an eating disorder and I'm ready to get help. And I reached out to a therapist and went into an outpatient treatment center. So that's kind of
Do you
the
have
gist
a
of that.
daughter or son?
I have a daughter.
And isn't it so fascinating? I think that, you know, the messages that we receive growing up and those, you know, really shape who we are, even if they're unintentional and well-meaning, or, you know, like you were mentioning with your mom, that those were the messages you got, and maybe that wasn't the intention, but those were the messages received. And I just find, you know, it's so powerful. And certainly I'm not trying to indicate that males don't get eating disorders. I'm just saying I noticed the evaluation piece on, oh, you're skinny, you're healthy, you know, things like that. It's very powerful. And then when raising a daughter, I have a daughter myself, like just being so careful with those messages that we're sending, because we want to create that healthy self-esteem, and not be evaluation piece.
Yeah, this is like a huge, huge, this is huge in my world right now. Like, and you know, I've always said, I don't want to have a boy, or I don't want to have a girl. I don't want to have a girl because I don't want to fuck her up like me. And so I always wanted a boy, and I'm very, very like grateful to have a girl, but I am so scared that like of passing those messages on, and very, very like hyper aware of like this weekend we were over at my grandma's, and my grandma was a very big, for me, the messages were always, oh, Carleen, you're so skinny, you're looking so good, you're so skinny, you're looking, you know, everything was about how I looked. And, you know, I'm sure that the eating disorder didn't just start with my mom, it was with my grandma and everything. And so when my grandma was constantly saying, Charlotte, you're so beautiful, you're so beautiful, you're so beautiful. And I'm like, yes, she is. But like,
And
she's, yes, and she's smart and she's strong and she's independent. And like, that's not all, you know, like that's not all she is. And so yeah, that's like a huge, huge thing. And even just like, you know, all the different philosophies or like psychologies around like how you're feeding your kids, and like the message that you're sending to them with like how do they
relationship
need
with food.
exactly the relationship of, you know, do they have to finish their plate even if they're not hungry, like at what speed do they eat, and like, oh, it's like it's so much. And yes, it's like a daily
Struggle. Yeah.
yes,
But what's so
it's a
great is that
lot.
you have, and I can sense already, because you were the one that could sense in yourself that you reached out for help yourself. And so you have those messages in your mind and able to advocate for your daughter. And by you expressing those messages around her, just like how you were saying with your grandmother, and she's, you know, she's smart and all those things. And I think that your daughter will see that you're also advocating for her.
So
Yeah, and like I think that that's been, go ahead.
No, you first.
I think that has been like you know, a big part of it is even in like my recovery from drugs and alcohol. Also, like I want her to know what I went through. I want her to know, I want her to be aware of these things. And so I like love taking her to meetings with stuff with me, and like her doing recovery stuff with me, because I want her to grow up knowing that this is life, and like, and mommy went through this shit. So yeah, I don't want her to be like sheltered from it. I want her to like see it. So
So you mentioned that relationships with your mom and grandma were very triggering, right? That they
mm,
kind of modeled some of this behavior. How did that affect your relationship with them later in life? Do you have a good relationship with them?
yeah, I do have a relationship with my mom. She is still triggering to me to this day. Um, and uh, but I definitely had a better relationship with my dad. But I lost my dad. So losing my dad made me, like it made me feel like I needed to have a better relationship with my mom. So it has brought me and my mom a little bit closer. Um, and I still like, and I do have a relationship with my grandma, but again, like it's triggering, even to hear her say that stuff about Charlotte, like it brings up like all this stuff that was said to me growing up, and so I don't see them quite as much as um probably like I would say my sister does. My sister sees them a lot more. Um, but yeah, today I have coping skills to deal with those triggers and I'm aware that okay, like these situations are going to be triggering for me. I need to plan ahead. So, but yeah, I do have a relationship with them.
Well, good. So at the same time, you've mentioned it that you're sober now, that you were addicted to drugs and alcohol. Did that tie together with the eating disorder, or was it its own separate animal?
Oh yeah, it all went hand in hand. When I was in treatment for my eating disorder, I uh I stopped the eating disorder behaviors and I started drinking more. Weird. Um and like using like some like recreational drugs more. Uh so it kind of just, they were all attached. But then when I took one out, the other one got really big. So it's like I handled this one thing, I handled the eating disorder, and I, thought that had like taken care of that, but then the drinking got really bad. And so I want to say August, I like graduated from the treatment center, and by October I was clean and sober, I guess, or October
So
25th. I was sober. So
and
I
I'm
didn't drink. Go ahead.
sorry, I'm lagging behind a little bit. So I'm just curious if growing up, and please don't answer if you're not comfortable. Did you have like some underlying anxieties and things growing up that maybe that as you mentioned, these were kind of coping mechanisms for you. So maybe I don't know if that was kind of like the lead into to maybe this.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that play into it. Growing up, I had two sisters. We were very competitive. So we're always competing for, who's going to get the most attention. So there's a piece that plays into that, like how can I get the most attention? Um, there's also like my parents divorced. They were very, they were amazing. They got along really well. They were at every single one of my sporting events growing up. However, my mom did remarry at like 11, when I was 11, and she remarried a man who had two sons, and that shook my world. I hated him. Um, I did not get along with the boys. Uh, and it really rocked my world. And that was like when I started, that was when the eating disorder in terms of like overeating started for me. Um, and then from there, uh, it just kind of kind of turned into just like, I really never had a sense of self. I didn't know who I was. I was, you know, Carleen, the overweight girl, then I was the athlete, and then I was, you know, like I didn't have any sort of like identity. But when I after I drank for the first time, I found that I did have some identity. I could be Carleen the party girl, and I was fun, and I could party, and people liked me. And I will also say though too that I do experience like some social anxiety. And so now like I guess I didn't like feel it then, but like today, now that I'm sober, I can sit back and like say like, oh yeah, like I feel like I feel like socially anxious. Like I feel socially awkward right now. Like I would drink. This is how I would get through this situation is I would drink so that I didn't feel so like anxious or like awkward. Which is weird because like today I can like sit on a podcast and coach a class and be like participating in the CrossFit games in front of thousands of people, but like be that person that's like, yeah, I'm socially awkward. So
Yeah. So when did the alcohol drinking start?
I started drinking in probably the like 8th grade, 9th grade. Not like heavily, just like on the weekends or like every once in a while when like I remember the first time I ever drank, one of our friends was his parents let us. They were like the type of parents that were like, oh, you're going to do it. You're going to do it here in the house and like that kind of thing. And so we went over there and we drank and, you know, like I said, I got that feeling of like, oh, like I'm fun. This is, oh, this is cool. Like people like me. People like this, Carleen. And so I, you know, continued through high school of like on the weekends or like a party here and there. I got caught a couple of times from my mom. And then the same thing in college, but you know, in college it was always like I was playing softball. So in season we would be like, oh, we're not drinking during season. We want to like perform well. But then out of season we would like party and drink. But it never for me turned into one of those things where like I always got my schoolwork done. I always got my like played my sport, did my like sport. You know, I didn't get to a place where I was relying on alcohol. So I didn't think it was a problem.
So you mentioned that you finished treatment for the eating disorder in August, and then you got sober in October. So did some of the coping mechanisms you learned in the eating disorder rehab, did it assist you with realizing that you needed to change the addiction?
Yes and no. I would say that, you know, when I was in treatment, like they were like, you know, Carly, like this behavior is like not like I would be talking to the therapist like, oh yeah, and then I went out this weekend and I did this and this and this and yeah, I mean it was probably pretty messed up, like probably shouldn't have done that, but whatever, you know. And they're like, you know, Carleen, like the alcohol might be an issue. You might want to think about like not drinking. And I was like, oh no, I'm fine. And then it was just time after time after time of like more things like coming up that people were like, yeah, that's not really normal, Carleen. Like we don't really like do those things. Just like normal drinkers don't do those things every single weekend and continue to like make the same mistakes and hurt people and like every single weekend. And so I was doing therapy and I remember just continuing to go in there and say like, yeah, I just don't know why I, keep doing this. I just don't know why I keep doing this. And then finally there was a day where I said, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to try something different and I'm going to prove that alcohol is not the problem. And I'm going to stop drinking for 30 days because I used to do this all the time. I used to do that all the time in season. I would just stop drinking for 30 days. And so that's what I did. I stopped drinking for 30 days. Um, and I still haven't drank since then. So, it was a lot of work for me to start to realize that I didn't need to drink and that I liked the person that I was without drinking better than I liked the person that I was when I drank. And so, yeah.
And that alone motivated you to go 60 days and 90 days and
Yeah, I just kind of I was just going just to I didn't know how long I wasn't going to drink. And, probably for the first year and a half, I never like said I wasn't going to drink for the rest of my life or that I'm an alcoholic or anything. I I just I was just not going to drink for a while and see what happened. And uh I was committed to putting into some work on myself and to finding out who I was and what I liked to do and who I wanted to be. I gave myself this opportunity to be whoever I wanted to be. And when I drank and when I had like this eating disorder, I I was somebody who just wore these masks. I just wore masks of who I thought everyone else wanted me to be and who I thought was going to be likable. And so I was the party girl one night, and then I, was Carleen, the party girl who has a credit card the other night, and like all these like different things. I just put on these masks of like who I thought everyone wanted me to be. Um, but it was never really who I truly was or who I wanted to be. And when I stopped drinking, I got to be that person. I got to find out what I like to do. I got to find out, what I believed in, how I wanted to act. And I just slowly began to realize that like this person that drinks, like I change when I drink and I do not want to be that person. Um, and so for me, it just came down to like, I don't have a choice. Like I cannot drink because I become this person that I just absolutely don't want to be. And it doesn't align with who I want to be.
is it easier to say no today than it was 10 years ago?
Oh yeah. Well, yes and no. Today I don't have the desire to drink. But it's just not a part of my life. Uh, there have been times and for me having a baby and the first 4 to 5 months of that was uh that moment that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is why people pick back up. Like this is why this is why I drank. And if alcohol was an option for me, I may drink. Um, but it's not. I don't leave it as an option for me. Um, we like my husband doesn't drink. Uh, he's not in recovery, but he just doesn't drink. His dad's an alcoholic also, so uh he's seen that growing up, and it's just not fun for him. So, he might have a drink once a year, but he usually doesn't do it in front of me. And so yeah, it is definitely a lot easier now, almost 11 years later, to say no. But I also know that it would be so easy to say yes.
Well, you have more
like,
coping now, more coping skills now, but you still can have triggers, right? We all can still kind of hold on to those triggers, and but yeah, you have those skills now.
Yeah. And that's what, I'm very grateful for, like, the skills that I do have, these coping skills that I have to be able to, sit with feelings. I can acknowledge when I feel uncomfortable. And those things are like the big ones for me, is just like being able to sit with a feeling and like accepting that like it's okay to have it. And also being okay with being uncomfortable.
So I want to move on to Charlotte. And this may be like a totally non-CrossFit podcast when we're done, because this may take up the rest of our time, but it's okay. We'll have you back on and talk about the CrossFit stuff later.
Yeah.
So just like everything else in your life, you had to overcome obstacles to be able to have Charlotte. And I know that you were very open about your journey through that. And can you walk us through what happened during that process?
Yeah, it was a fairly long process. Something that people, I don't think, realize that that it's a long process, to if you can get pregnant naturally, maybe not so long, but if you can't get pregnant naturally, it's quite the process. So it started, I had like an annual appointment, and I went into the doctor, and the doctors called me back, and they're like, they said, oh, well, if it comes back normal, this is when I was competing. So if it comes back normal, we'll just send you an email or like a letter. But if it's not normal, if it's abnormal, we'll call you. Well, they called me, and they're like, the doctor would like to see you. And so I lost my mind. And the doctor brings me in, and he's like, so, well, all your tests came back okay, but your some of your like labs came back like, I don't know, not normal, right? So he's like, do you take any supplements? And I'm like, well, yeah, like fish oil and protein shakes. And he's like, well, no, like, are you on any supplements? So he was thinking that I was on steroids because I'm an athlete, and my like thyroid and basically my testosterone was like really high, which was the reason that some of my all of my reproductive system, like hormones, were all out of whack because I was so lean, and because of how much I was working out. So that was a long story to get, but it was funny because he thought I was on steroids, and I was like, no, I'm not. Anyways, so that was my first experience with the doctor saying like, well, look, it's fine for right now, but when you want to get pregnant, you're probably going to have to put on some body fat. Like, okay. But he's like, you're fine now. You're fine right now. Okay, great. I was bragging to my coach. I eat so good, and like, I'm so fit that like that the doctor thought I was on a steroid. I have this natural, like, I thought that this was like great. And turns out it wasn't. So it turns out not having your period for 5 years is not a normal thing. And it started for me with grid. I participated in grid right after the 2015 games, and I lost my period and I never got it back. And I didn't think anything of it. And so when I decided that after the 2018 regionals, it must have been, 2018 regionals. I did not qualify for the games, and I was like, good, I'm done. Like I had, leading up to that regional, I had moments of like, I don't even know if I don't even want to go. Like, I don't even want to do this anymore. And so when I didn't qualify, it was like, yep, this is fine. Like, I'm fine. And so 2018, I had said, okay, like, I'm not going to the games. Let's start trying to get pregnant. I'm ready to have a baby. And that's what we were waiting for, is waiting for me to decide that I was ready to be not selfish anymore. And so we started that process, and I went to the doctor because I knew that, like, okay, this is probably going to be an issue. Like, got some blood tests done. And everyone said, all right, well, you want to get pregnant, you got to put on some body fat. You got to get your period back. Okay. So we tried that. I committed to, taking my training down a little bit. Then 2018, I went and did demo team.
So that must have been triggering too, though, to be recovering, eating disorder, and now be told you have to put on weight.
Oh yeah, this rocked my world.
Yeah.
This was a constant daily struggle of, this is all I've been told. This is all I've been praised for. This is all I've done my entire life, is to lose weight or be fit. And now I'm having to go the complete opposite direction. I was told to, like, only go on walks. And I was like, this isn't doing it for me. Like, I got through, I got sober, like, really with the CrossFit, and that high intensity is a coping skill for me. And so to now rip that out of my hands, I struggled, and it was a constant back and forth for me. And to be completely honest, like, I never really fully, like, did that low of intensity, because in 2019 I went as a master, so, like, as much as, like, people are like, yeah, I don't train, I didn't train, I just, like, I happened to get here. Like, you train, but that's, like, all I knew. That's all I knew and that's still all I know, is to train. It's not just a workout for me. I don't say I'm going to go work out. I say I'm going to go train. That's just all I know. So yeah, it was a huge thing, was to be told, like, now you need to gain weight. And I kind of went in, like, ebbs and flows of it. So I went, like, all right, screw it, eat everything. And then was like, no, I don't want this. And then it's like, all right, okay, your goal is to gain weight. Like, no, I don't want it. And so it ended up being a 2-year process to get to a place where I had gained some weight. But it's funny because training for the games is for the first 3 years as an individual. I thought I needed to be super lean and look like a CrossFit Games athlete. And then I decided I needed to gain weight, and I purposely tried to gain weight. and I did gain some weight and went into, the master's division, the heaviest I'd been as an athlete, and had my best performance. So like, it's, I think that says a little bit. But so yeah, I did well in that. We were just starting, we had decided to go to a fertility specialist, because I just wasn't having any luck getting my period back. So we had gotten through all the testing, and I had like a procedure that I had to like go under for, and got all this testing and stuff, and we were getting ready to start medication. And I got the news that I had qualified for the games. And so we decided to push it out like 2 months and wait. And because I was like, just in case I podium, I don't want to like have a positive drug test from these fertility treatments when I can wait 1 month. What's one more month, So we pushed it out. I did happen to podium, and I got a nice little paycheck, and that's how Charlotte came about. So when I won, it was like, oh my gosh, like look how much I won. We can have a baby now, because it's not cheap. So yeah, like CrossFit Games sponsored us having a baby, basically. And we started the fertility treatments, and I got my period back, and then we did an IUI, so where they take my husband's sperms, like sample, I guess, and they take it and they wash it and they clean it and they make those swimmers all really, really nice and like clean, and then they use a catheter and they insert it inside of me so it can be like the best chance. And typically with an IUI, they say it takes like 1 to 3 or 4, and then after that you go into like an IVF. And we got lucky on our first one, and so we found out that we were pregnant on officially on New Year's Eve. No, New Year's Day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's it like being a mom? Like you went through all that and now you're the mom, and what joy does that bring your life?
Well, Charlotte brings me joy. Now she does. Yeah, I mean it's just so I can't imagine my life without her now. But like I said earlier, like she put us through the ringer in the first like 4 months, 4 to 5 months.
And nobody like talks about that. Nobody's honest about that. Like
exactly.
It's not just a walk in the park every day. It's really hard.
Oh my gosh, the 4th trimester, like why nobody doesn't talk about that more, I don't know, but I've been trying to like be a little bit more vocal about it, because that like it almost broke, like it did break me for
It's
a
like,
moment.
you're like, oh, here I am. I wanted this thing, but it's really hard. And I kind of want to say I don't want it, but you do, it is
Yes.
a very.
Yes. I literally told a friend today, they are struggling with their daughter and going through a lot of the same stuff that we did early on with Charlotte. And I said, it's okay to say, put her back inside.
Yeah.
Take her away. Put her back inside. It doesn't make you a bad mom to say, I would like her to go back. Like, this is not what I signed up for. I would like her to go back. There were a lot of times that I said that early on, because I I thought that the labor and the pregnancy was going to be the hard part and the uncomfortable part. Um, and I guess, you know, like even just saying that out loud, like it's not that this, you know, fourth trimester, like early on was uncomfortable. It was just hard, like hard. And, you know, I'm trying to run a business. My husband was, it was a fire season. So he was at, for 2 weeks in at 7 weeks, he left for 2 weeks, like 2.5 weeks. And I was like single mom dutying it, trying to run an affiliate. And yeah, it was really, really hard. And I got really like low. And that was kind of that like point where I was like, oh, like this is when I would drink, if I had that as an option. Luckily I didn't. And we made it through. And it's now one of those things that you like look back and you're like, okay. And I think this is why it isn't talked about, is that like you look back at it, you're now and you're like, well, it wasn't that bad. We made it, right? Like we made it through. It wasn't that bad, but like it's still really fresh for me. And it still is like really bad.
Yeah.
It was really bad. Or really hard. And I think that we will have more of those hard seasons as they're just going to change. And knowing that we did get through that one will help us get through these other like hard seasons. But yeah, her and I right now, like basically at like 6 months was kind of when things started to like get a little bit easier for us. Like I said, like Keith works 2 days on, 4 days off. So her and I have like a really good routine for those 2 days that he's gone. And yeah, so now it's like it's really fun. Like I enjoy, I actually I don't even want to, like I go downstairs and like work out and I'm like I don't feel like I can work out because Charlotte's not down here. Like I want her down there. Sometimes I'm like, I'd like to work out in peace, but yeah, it's just a part of my day now. And I can't imagine my life without her. She's such like, whereas in the first 4 months, she was very colicky and I was like, this baby doesn't stop crying. And now she's like the happiest baby and she's just very, very chill. And so I'm really, really grateful that we got past that hard crying hump.
I'm going to tell you, there's a mantra that I use, and I think that your whole story has kind of summed up the whole thing. But the mantra that I always use is, you can do hard things. And even in those moments, you know, you can do it. It's going to be really hard. Doesn't mean it doesn't suck, but you can do it. And I think that through all of your story, through the recovering from eating disorder and from your recovery with drugs and alcohol, and then, you know, your challenge to become a mother and then now going through motherhood, is that you can do hard things. And I just am so thankful that you were open to sharing your story with us. And I hope that it will help other people as well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. And we'll definitely have to have you back because we didn't get to touch on anything CrossFit, which is good. I like it when we just get to talk about the person. But I think you're such an inspiration.
I think it's great.
I do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And we will talk with you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, Carleen.